This is Jerome Corsi. I'm here. Morning.
Hi, Dr. Corsi. How are you?
How's everybody?
Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
Well, happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday. God bless everybody. I need a link here, and I'll post it on Twitter, and I'll post it on Gab. So we got people following us. If you just give me a link to the live chat, that'll be good. I want to get the link with the live at the end of it. Okay, I think that's it right here. Looks like that's it. Yes. Okay, it'll take me a second here to post this, and then I'll be able to stay for at least an hour today. I want to review the many that we got yesterday, which I think were tremendous. We got a huge number of.
Oh yeah.
I mean, is that the most we've ever gotten?
Oh, by far. I think
day.
It's got to be almost twice as much as we've ever gotten in the past. Wait, do you remember? Do you recall where you left off yesterday, roughly?
Just before the Antifa, just right before the Antifa posts.
Okay. Do you want to go back and go through some of them again, because we were kind of in a rush to catch up with the new posts that were coming in?
I think that's a good idea, really, because we were really, yesterday there was so much happening. We had President Trump's speech, and we were, wanting to get out. Everybody's wanting to monitor the speech.
Yeah, and there were new posts coming in like faster than we could cover them. I think you're right. I think we ought to maybe spend some time, take some time, and actually go through all of them and discuss them at length. Now that we have the time to do so. And
today, what day is today? Is today the
11th?
11th. March 11th. Sunday, March 11th.
Okay.
2018.
All right.
Glorious year.
It's going to be.
And a glorious month. A glorious month. Things are going to happen this month. I think this is the start of it all.
I'm just getting this ready now.
So where would you like to pick up? I'll go. I'm outside having a smoke now, but I'll get inside and scroll the post down to wherever we're starting.
Okay, hold on one second. There's lots of topic. Okay, I'll just do the. Okay, I'm just making sure I've got it all done here.
Pam, someone's asking to check. One of the mods is asking to check your DM, Red Dog.
Gotcha. I'll be downstairs in just a second here, Red Dog.
Hey, good morning, Dr. Corsi. Thumper's here.
Oh, good. How are you, Thumper?
I'm doing great. How are you this morning?
I'm feeling better today. Got a little bit of rest. I was really, yesterday was a tough day. Lost the internet, and I had to get back on to get the Ethernet working again. It was really a stressful day yesterday, but so much was happening yesterday. But I think now we've got this all listed. I think it should be up. I'm going to double check here, make sure it got posted on Twitter that I'm on now. We're doing the decodes and going back over everything. I want to start by commenting a couple of things. Number one is the email I set up is working. And this is an address I'm going to give out, which is the one I prefer everybody to contact me on, and that's the JRLC, my initials, Jerome Robert Louis Corsi, JRLC, at yahoo.com. JRLC at yahoo.com. That's a internet I'm going to reserve to communicating with all the anons out there, including people following on the YouTube live chat. So this is one you can, please don't swamp me with, I get so many, I probably can't answer every one of them. I'm guaranteed I'll be swamped on it. But I'll try to get back to everybody that I can get back to. Just be patient. I'll be reading every one of them, even if I can't answer every one of them. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Thumper, did you get the DM that I sent you with my info there?
Let me just make sure I did. I haven't had last night I was exhausted, so it was really. Hold on, let me make sure.
I sent
Well,
that.
you're not allowed.
Yeah,
I'm not allowed.
Dr. Corsi, since I'm kind of I've passed the torch to Thumper here for We the People, I'm going to get him set up on remote desktop access so he can actually run the stream and scroll
Great.
through posts and articles. So as we move on here into the future, you should be able to contact him and he'll be able to run things.
Yeah, Thumper,
busy doing other stuff.
I did get the DM from you, and I've got your personal information. I'll be responding with mine, so you can directly contact me, and we can coordinate. Okay, and I look forward to being able to do that. I think it'll work very well. Same way I did with Pamphlet and with Brainstorm.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll be once I'm finished with this decode, I'll get in touch with you by responding to your contact information, probably by direct message. By an IM, an instant message, okay?
Excellent. We can do
that. And also on the book, I was very pleased yesterday how many people did go over and pre-order the book. It's very important. The book now is being listed on Amazon as a bestseller. If it gets to be number 1 on Amazon, what it does is it opens up so many more interviews. It gets better placement in the stores. It means that there's much more pressure on Fox and the others to interview me.
Right, more radio stations contacting you to have you on to discuss this stuff. It is
all of this. You see, this is what makes it so important to me to be able to have this book succeed. If it's number 1, and there's going to be an Isikoff book and David Korn, which is going to portray Donald Trump as a puppet of Putin in Russia, and it's going to be out there. And the left is going to make that book sell like crazy because the left wants to push that narrative. We've got to support Trump and push this narrative. Kind of to indicate my goodwill on it, I've been. And I will continue. I can't do it in unlimited amounts, but for a certain number of people who can't afford the book, if you text me or send me a message on the JRLC, I'll take a certain number of books and authors' copies, of which I have a limited number, and I'll send them out free to maybe up to 25 or 50 people who can't afford it. I can't do this in the hundreds, but I can do it for a certain number of people who are on very limited budgets or are, and I'm going to ask the people to whom I send them those to, share the books and to circulate them and get them seen. But I will provide a certain number of books without charge that I can do within reason, bear with me, to those who can't afford them. And that'll be kind of a way of saying thank you to everybody for all the help you're giving me getting it to be a number 1 book. And I'm put the information here for Amazon. I'm going to post that right now. The book is Killing. It's
what is the publisher's price for that book as far as like if somebody wanted to buy some in bulk?
Hardcover was 19, right? 49.
Yeah, let me just check. Let me just check what they say it is right now. It's posted at $19.49 on Amazon. If somebody wanted to buy bulk, and you sent me an email, I can get you a bulk price from the publisher. But bulk price is probably going to be 50 or more copies of the book. So I mean that's expensive to do. Yep. But if somebody wanted to do that,
10. I could go in for 10.
Yeah, I don't know if I can get a bulk price on 10. I mean, the publisher.
Well, we can work together and do a bulk purchase.
Shall I go ahead and archive the stream here, really quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Good idea.
All right.
Good. Go ahead and do that.
Dr. Corsi, are you doing the audio?
There we go. We are back up.
Great. So I'm putting here on the, as I'm saying, we've been having a discussion about why it's important to get my book, This Killing of the Deep State, to #1 on Amazon. It's because once we get it to be #1, it gets better positioning in the bookstores. Here, I just listed it on Amazon, which is the place to buy it. I prefer that or Barnes & Noble, but I want to get it #1 on Amazon because that's most watched right now in the industry. It gets better placement in the bookstores, and I'll get on more radio and TV. TV is going to be hard to break into, though I'm going to do everything I can to break into it. And it'll be the, I want to get on Hannity. I want to get on Neil Cavuto. I want to get on Fox and Friends. And the publicists are working to do this, but if the book soars up to #1, it'll be very hard for them to resist. And that we're up against Michael Isikoff and David Korn have a book coming out, which is going to be, I'll show you what theirs is. We're going to compete with it. And I'm sure they're going to get a huge amount of traffic on theirs. I mean, their book is Russian Roulette, the inside story of Putin's war on America and the election of Donald Trump. And they've got a picture of Putin and Trump, red cover, Russian Roulette, the inside story of Putin's war. So they're still advancing the narrative. You've got Kushner and Manafort and Putin and Trump, as if Trump was working with Russia in order to get the election. This completely, discarded narrative. The left won't let go of it. And my book is all about how we defeat the deep state and how we expose the agenda. Mainstream media would love to bury my book into zero and have Isikoff soar to #1 and stay there. So that's
hard to
part of
believe it's hard to believe that anybody's taking that seriously, that whole Russia thing. How can they still...
I don't know, but, Isikoff's book right now on Amazon is at, let me think, it's at #7 in top 100 books. Mine is 240, because all the mainstream media is promoting Isikoff's book. So all the left out there are going to go out and buy it to affirm the agenda that Trump is, in collusion with Russia. They just continue to tell the lie. It's the lie over and over again, the big lie over and over again. It's, basically the propaganda technique to make a big lie into truth by repeating it loudly enough and often enough and telling it in big letters. And, it's Saul Alinsky 101, it's Goebbels 101. Yes.
Won't it contain libelous information? I mean, speaking in terms of actual actionable, libel.
It's tough because, all Manafort, Jared Kushner, Trump are all public figures. And it's very tough to have a libel case against a public figure. So they can probably say all kinds of scurrilous things and, make up stuff, and it'll still be a bestseller. And that's why it's so important for everybody in pre-sales right now, if you're going to order it, do that. Now, I've set up the email account at jrlc@yahoo.com. And overnight, last night, I got already, just announcing it one day, I have, almost 200 emails in one day. So it's going to take me a while to get through them. And I'm going to do my best to get through them. And I'm saying for a limited number of books, if people absolutely can't afford it, until I run out of authors' copies, I'll be happy to comply by sending out a limited number free to those who explain to me. I've got one here from a disabled veteran, retired.
I'd like to see us set up an account that we can donate to that would increase that amount of books that we can hand out to people.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Because there's a lot of people that, but we have to have some way of getting the money to a particular place that can be used, and we're sort of doxing ourselves by doing that. But you know, I'm willing to do that. Like I said, I can buy 10 copies right now outright.
We could set up a GoFundMe page.
Yeah, we could do a GoFundMe page to do that and buy some books and get them to the publisher directly. And if someone knows how to do the GoFundMe account, let's get in touch with us, and we'll figure out how to set it up. Because if the publisher does it, I mean, the publisher's right downtown. I can go in there and sign books, and we can get them out to people who can't afford them if we have an account to do that. And I'm happy to do that.
Hey, Dr. Corsi, if we bring our books to DC, will you sign them?
Yes, I certainly will. I never charge for signing. I never charge for signing books, and I will by Monday have a post office box where you can send the books, and I'll send them back to you. Or if you want, I'll send you a book plate signed. We're getting book plates done, and you can paste it in the front of the book. But books that are sent to me, I will sign. I like it. It's good if people can give me return postage or an envelope to put the book in to send it back to you. Some way that it's easy for me to sign the book and put it in return postage envelope that you've created and then send it back. But I'll have a post office box set up for that by Monday. And I'll be able to announce it so I can sign anybody's book who wants them signed.
They can't know how to do that?
Pardon me?
I was seeing if Dad Cat knew how to do the GoFundMe since he kind of...
never done it, have no clue on how to do it.
I don't imagine it's very complicated.
I don't think so, but somebody in the group, you know, we'll find somebody today or tomorrow, I'm sure, who does have experience doing it, because there's always in a group this size, you know, almost someone who has experience with anything we ask, I find. There's some very, very good people out there following this site.
Let's go out to the YouTube people. I'm sure there's somebody out there that's listening right now that knows how to do GoFundMe.
It's not that difficult. It's really not. We use it all the time in education.
Good. Well, and, you know, people are saying they want a book plate. I'll be happy to send out book plates. People just have to email me and tell them where to go, and I'll send. We're getting them done. People are saying PayPal is better than GoFundMe. GoFundMe takes more of a percentage than PayPal. I don't mind doing the GoFundMe. It says because people are used to using that for purposes of contributing for the a cause. I do PayPal for people who want, you know, to contribute to me directly, and I've had that account. I'll post it as well, and people have been very generous with that.
If you had a wish on Fox of who you would love the most to sit down with, would it be Hannity, Fox and Friends, or, you know, because we are right now going to storm whoever you say with requests to have you on.
Well, that's great. I mean, first of all, Sean Hannity's been a great friend and a great supporter for many, many years. And Sean has always had me on whenever he could. I think he got blocked, and he had a difficult time getting me on for a while. But I've seen Sean recently, and we had a very, very cordial conversation. I have tremendous respect for Sean. And I go back to 2004 and 2008 with having been regularly on Sean's show. When he was back with Hannity and Combs, I was on the show. And also Fox and Friends. You know, the...
All right.
I'm going to vote for Tucker Carlson.
Let's storm Fox, everybody, and get Dr. Corsi on. Everybody send an email.
Yeah, Tucker Carlson is a good... I know Tucker, not extensively, but some of the people I work with in D.C. are very close to Tucker. And Tucker, I think, has got a great show and is really up and coming. And I think
he's really cool.
And Laura Ingram is good, too. I mean, all of these people on Fox are. Laura Ingram, Tucker, Fox and Friends, and Sean.
Multiple shows?
Yes. I'd like to do multiple shows. I'd like to get in there and, you know, and I'm willing to go on to, I was on with
Judge Janine.
Judge Janine would be very good. I've met Judge Janine a number of times. I also like the idea of getting on. I mean, I've been interviewed last week by Tom Hartman. I've been on Tom, on the left, and I don't mind that either. Tom Hartman is, and Lou Dobbs. Lou Dobbs and I have been together back since I was attacking the Security and Prosperity Partnership in North America, and I've seen Lou in New York any number of times. He lives out close to me in New Jersey, and he's also tremendous. Cavuto is also very good. People are talking about them over here. Maria Bartiromo, another outstanding, I followed her back when she was on CNBC. She's a terrific reporter. Judge Napolitano has been a very close personal friend. We have talked frequently going back maybe 10 or 12 years. Remember, a lot of these people know me back from when I was with John O'Neill and co-authored Unfit for Command. So that goes back to 2004. And I'm happy to do that, to work with all these people. And I'd even be on MSNBC and CNN. I'm sure that they got me on, they would love to beat me up. But, that also...
Armor of God, brother.
Again, John O'Neill and John was on tremendous number of those shows where he would get beaten up, and they only increased the visibility and increased the interest. So I think the two things I will appreciate the most is everybody's continuing to, buy copies over there on Amazon.com, and I've listed the link. Secondly, I will the jrlc@yahoo.com for emails, and I will have set up by Monday a post office box where you can send me the books, and I'll sign them. It'd be good to include return postage or an envelope so I don't have to make that up and do it. And we're getting book plates printed, so I'll be happy to send people a book plate that you can then paste into the front of the book. All those things. And, if you tell me how you want the book inscribed, I'll do that. If you want a personal inscription for you or someone else, I'll inscribe it personally the way you ask it to be inscribed. And I don't charge anything to do that. Those are the types of things I do to say thank you to everybody who has supported me. And this is a joint group effort. If we can get this out there, if this book becomes a cause, I can see Donald Trump holding it up. Donald Trump knows about the book. He's going to be given a copy of the book. Chris Ruddy is close to Donald Trump. They see each other at Mar-a-Lago. The book is published by Newsmax, and I'm very pleased with this book. I think you'll find it to be a good read and very provocative, and it's got the information in it we want. So I wanted to tell everybody how important that was, and get everybody kind of in a campaign here that we can really boost the book to #1 on Amazon. That's my goal.
So which post are we going to start off with here? I'm down in the basement now, ready to go.
Okay, let's go. I think we should go through yesterday, and we can take a little bit more time and do it. The first ones were on this Australia yesterday.
Right.
So that goes back to, I guess it goes back to
like 908.
906. 906 was the first post we got yesterday from March 10th. And it was the one that said, reread Ray Australia and Australia's donations to the Clinton Foundation. And why is this relevant? Go ahead. Yes?
Oh, no, I was just saying I got it up and we're ready to go. So take it away, Doc. All you.
Well, first of all, Charles Ortel has done an enormous amount of work on this. I want to give Charles credit because he deserves it. Charles must have been 4 years ago now, asked me, we're having a lunch in New York, and he asked me if I've known Charles for a long time. And Charles is one of the most brilliant financial analysts on Wall Street. he asked me if I'd ever looked at the Clinton Foundation financials, and I said, no, I really hadn't. And then I started to, and he with Charles, and we first of all found out that the filings of the foundation that you found to create a foundation were all fraudulent. They were done incorrectly. The foundation was operating in states where it had not registered. It did not have authorization from the IRS to do anything but build the presidential library. And then secondly, everything the foundation did was a scam. So not only were they not properly registered, but when they went to solve the problem of AIDS in Africa, they bought defective generic drugs from this company Rambaxi in India that was a major international fraud because the drugs didn't cure anybody of anything. Yet they raised money in Australia and other countries, Ireland, France. This was at the UN. They scammed the UN. And Clinton Foundation then stole billions of dollars out of the foundation. Enormous. They benefited themselves. The whole foundation was a great scam. Now, Charles, I credit Charles when I wrote my book, Partners in Crime, how the Clintons were monetizing the White House for personal gain. And that book did very well. Peter Schweitzer also wrote his book on Clinton's money. And Peter's did better than mine did. He got much more attention than I did. I didn't have this kind of a megaphone at that time to really get the word out. This live chat that we're doing, and I've been doing virtually every day, has been a tremendous way to get the word out, and it's being watched very intensely, including by, I believe, Q and the White House. And we're getting, encouragement to continue going. So Charles has been working with these countries. He's contacted people in Australia and in France and in Canada and in the UK and Ireland. And Charles is getting investigations going. So in Australia, Charles Ortel is on the verge of getting the Australian government to demand that the Clinton Foundation was a fraud and they want repayment of the money, especially the government money that was sent to the Clinton Foundation from Australia. That's going to start a domino effect. That's going to mean that the countries all over the world are going to want to go back to the Clinton Foundation, and they're going to want to get their money back. And it's going to begin criminal investigations in all these different countries. Now, that's huge because that will also open up the floodgates here. And it will mean that we get not only the criminal investigation that's ongoing right now in Arkansas, where the word came out, and I posted it on Twitter and also on Gab, that there was this floodgate of investigation beginning in Arkansas, even calling in this guy William Campbell to testify, who was the chief witness, Victoria Townsend, the attorney in Washington, her client, on this bribery scheme, the Russian bribery scheme in the uranium business that was hidden by Mueller when he was head of the FBI from CFIUS, the Committee on Foreign Investment of the United States, when CFIUS was voting to allow the Russian energy conglomerate Rosatom to buy 100% of Uranium One. That uranium ended up going to both to North Korea and to Iran. So I think this is really the kind of thing that we need to investigate. Now, there's also one of the anonymous over on the Q Research has listed a very comprehensive kind of list of offenses in the Australian government and around the world of the Clinton Foundation, but they're particularly heavy on the Australian government. And I don't know what the appropriate thing to do is. It was on a Steemit account. And I think if I can bring it up from Steemit, hold on a second. Let me see if we can get this up in the browser. Because I can list it and we can have everybody look at it. And I'm going to read a few of the items here in a minute. Let's see if this brings it up on Steemit. No, it's very hard to just pull up these and to get them to work. For my browser, they all take some modification before they do work. Hold on a second. Let me see what the problem is here. Let's try this here and see if it brings it up here. I don't know how to basically take something from over at I can post the number of it here. Does anybody know what I do to get this copied and pasted somewhere from the Q research site and to bring it over into our site?
Pam, can you help?
What is it you're looking for?
There's a post on the Q research on 8chan that is right on this whole Australian government scam for the Clinton Foundation. And I'd really like everybody to have access to it. It's number 613732. Here. Hold on. I'm going to drop it in Discord. And I'm going to read a bit of it. That's the post number. Is that the
one that starts first offense?
Yes.
I can get that for you.
Can you pull that? Can you get that for us?
Yes, I can. It's going to be in pretty small print, though, because I'm going to have to take it as an image. I think. Maybe I can get it as a complete document. Hold on just a minute.
While we're waiting, somebody just asked Dr. Corsi, do you think that Trump and Kim have met already?
Yes. I'm positive they have.
Okay, just...
I think that they met in the Forbidden City when Donald Trump had that very secretive dinner, if you remember.
Right.
I'm posting the contents of that. It's too long. Okay, it doesn't...
There's a link to it I just put right there for anybody in here that wants to check it out. But let me go ahead and pull it up on screen for people. Did you want to run through it for everybody?
Yeah, because it's really got very good information. I mean, so that I'm sure, and let's follow the comments in the YouTube because they're very good.
Yeah, well, how about right since Dr. Corsi is going to be doing most of the talking here, why don't you all with us here in voice chat focus on live chat?
Let's make sure we don't miss anything over in the live chat. The comments over in live chat are really excellent. They always are, and we've got a lot of excellent people over there who are knowledgeably posting and very usefully posting. Yes, I think this is very good. Yes.
There's the screenshot of it.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Yes, the Clinton Foundation laundering money, the scheme, and the Steemit. There we go. The Steemit link. That's what I wanted to get. Yes, the Clinton. There we go. That's the Steemit link to this post. It's very, very good. But you look, the first offense, and this is Charles Ortel's research. He really did a good day. Charles has been working with this retired Australian detective Michael Smith. And Michael Smith has been asked by the FBI to provide the evidence he has regarding fraudulent donations of the Clinton Foundation from Australian taxpayers. And this is the kind of information that Q is wanting us to have and to circulate. The first offense, a $25 million financial advantage dishonestly obtained by deception in the Memorandum of Understanding signed February 22nd, 2006 between the Australian government and the Clinton Presidential Library and the Clinton HIV/AIDS Initiative, which was CHAI, Clinton HIV/AIDS Initiative. Offenders Bill Clinton and Alexander Downer in Australia. At this point, the HIV/AIDS Initiative was not registered properly as a charity, and the money that was sent in bought some of these defective drugs and was diverted to the benefit of the Clintons. The second offense, the October 2006 backdating of false tender advertisements purporting to advertise the availability of a $15 million contract to provide HIV/AIDS services in PNG on behalf of the Australian government. After an agreement was already in place to pay the Clinton Foundation and its associates, offenders Bill Clinton and Alexander Downey. PNG, I'm not sure what PNG is here. In PNG, I have to think about that for a second. PNG. Hold on, let me just see if I can't Google
the rest
that.
of the line says Papua New Guinea. Is that going to be PNG?
Probably Papua New Guinea, yes. That's probably right. That makes sense. Okay, and then the third offense, so look at how the third offense was that the corrupt incorporation of an incorporated, this William J. Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS Initiative, 2006. Yes, it's in Papua New Guinea, Port Moresby. It was not officially registered as a charity in the United States. You can't just create a name and raise money as a charity where you're taking tax-deferred or tax-exempt contributions. The Clintons did this over and over and over again. That's a crime. And then the money that came in was spent dishonestly. So the $10 million financial advantage dishonestly obtained by deception in 2008 in Washington, Canberra, Australia, involving the MOU between the Australian government and the Clinton Climate Initiative and the purported Global Carbon Capture and Storage Institute. Again, these are not registered entities. They weren't properly incorporated. They weren't registered with the IRS as charities. You can't do that. It's illegal. I can't just say, I'm the Jerome Corsi Foundation, and I've got a initiative to do X, Y, Z, so send me money and it'll be tax deferred. I didn't register it, and I don't report on it.
But please give me all your money, please.
I want billions, because I'm going to go solve AIDS in Africa. Well, and then I go buy defective drugs and have them shipped to Africa with no distribution system in Africa to get them to anybody. So they get dumped in Africa. And, the criminals, I wrote about this. I wrote articles about this, where there was a big article in Forbes, and one of the people involved in the scam said, why do we care? It's just people in Africa dying. We don't care about them. Why do we care about people in Africa? I mean, the whole thing. Yeah, I'll find my article. Wait till you see this article. It's so disgusting. Hold on. If I find
the entire in text form.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's up on the live stream.
Hold on. Let me find my article. Hold on, here we go. Yeah, this is the article. They distributed useless drugs to fight AIDS. Here's the article in WorldNet Daily, and it got picked up all over the world. And this is an article that was, I was supplementing Charles Ortel's research. I published this in 2015. And Charles Ortel had been doing at that point, a 6-month study into the airline ticket levy program run by UnitAid France was charging these fees on airline tickets that went to UnitAid at the UN in Geneva. And that went into the Clinton Health Initiative, which used the money to buy these defective drugs in India from Ranbaxy, R-A-N-B-A-X-Y. And the drugs couldn't cure anybody, but Clinton got UnitAid and the World Health Organization, part of the UN, to devote these hundreds of millions of dollars to the Clinton Foundation so that they could buy the deceptive drugs. And Clinton said, well, we'll use all our purchasing power and we'll get generic drugs at a lower price so we can cure more people for the dollar. Well, the drugs didn't meet the specifications, and they made intentionally false statements to the government. Ranbaxy agreed to pay $500 million in fines, most ever levied against a drug company. A Fortune magazine article in May 2013 by investigative reporter Catherine Eban listed dirty medicine, and she quoted with a conference call Dr. Kathy Spreen, Ranbaxy's executive director of clinical medicine, and a dozen company executives, in which a participating Ranbaxy executive dismissed concern that the company was producing defective drugs. Who cares? It's just blacks dying, the executive said, according to Fortune. Here's the article. I mean, I read that and I was, I was floored at the hypocrisy of the Clintons, but then nothing the Clintons did was too outrageous. There's the article right there, and you can see the quote. It's in Discord now. And if we go back through all this list, you see that this Detective Smith is preparing to file a private criminal prosecution in the Australian court, along with formal advice to the Commonwealth Director of Public Prosecutions. And if that happens, it's going to be huge news. And at the bottom of this article, you'll see some references to go look up. This work has to be a shout out to Charles Ortel, because he's the guy who did it. And he deserves an enormous amount of credit for this, because Charles has been working on this night and day. He's been doing various Jason Goodman been doing various emails almost every Sunday. Charles Ortel and Jason Goodman doing email together. If we can find a link to that, we can post it. But if this is being shared with the Department of Justice and Australia, I'm sure it was discussed by Clinton and the Australian Prime Minister when they were together last week. If this happens, it's going to be huge international news, and it's going to rock the Clinton Foundation worldwide, because it's going to open up investigations in numerous countries. Somebody posted, what difference does it make for Hillary? Well, it's going to make a lot of difference when the Clintons, this is only one of the things in which the Clintons are going to face serious criminal international charges, because they're international criminals. You cannot say you're going to fight AIDS in Africa and get people to donate millions of dollars to you from all over the world, including foreign governments. Listen to that. This is happening again. I've got my phone here, and suddenly, without me going to Siri picks up and answers. I mean, you think anybody's listening to us through my cell phone?
Last time that happened, I think it was when we were on the first episode of Coffee and Freedom. I went back and watched because I was curious why that happened. I think it was because you said the word seriously. That's when it
maybe happened. It could be. But I'll tell you, we have these devices in our house, and we might as well invite the CIA to sit in the living room.
Yeah, my pops had a what was it, Mom's Amazon Alexa? Is that it, or whatever?
Yes.
Yeah, we tossed that thing out a few days ago. Just tossed it in the trash where it belongs.
Okay, so people are saying, let's make sure we get all these post it up on YouTube. Yes, I think I'll take my article and I'll post it right now up on, hold on, I'll put it on Gab, and I'll put it on the Twitter.
And Dr. Corsi, I posted the links to all of the Jason Goodman, Charles Ortel Sundays in the Discord.
Excellent, because Jason and Charles deserve a shout out for doing that. Okay, I'm just typing this and getting this out there.
I see people in live chat getting antsy. They want us to get to Q posts. We'll get to them, folks. Don't worry. We'll get there.
But this is important. I think Q wants us to make sure we cover Australia. I know. This is the Q post, and we're doing what Q has asked us to do. There's no new Q post today so far, so we're reviewing things, and we're not going to cover them all. We're going to cover some of the most important. And
right.
And you know, Pamphlet, you've got confirmation that Q wants us to make sure we focus on Australia. We're not wasting time here. This is very important, right?
Yeah, those posts were pretty. I mean, you look at those posts; it's pretty obvious that they want us on it. That was huge. That they really went off yesterday. So and there's, by the way, folks, there's more to Q posts than just reading out the Q posts. It's important to cover the material and the context and everything associated with it. So I think that's what we're really doing here.
I know also, people. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Also, pick up on the discrepancies that you see there, the little punctuation differences and the syntax differences. You know, the way that the words maybe don't seem to fit together quite right, because all of that has meaning.
Right. I mean, I think the Clinton scam is finally going to come to an end. And I think the Clinton scam is going to be investigated for criminal charges. This is so important. It is the beginning of the end for the Clintons. And
thank God.
And, you know, Q knows it. And I think it's going to start in Australia. And that's, I mean, this whole idea that, I found this article in Forbes, and I shared it with Charles, and the two of us, we were at the Harvard Club looking at it, and we just couldn't believe that somebody in Rambaxy would say, it's just blacks in Africa dying. Who cares? We're sending them defective drugs. You know, this is I think, critical. This is critical to the, hold on a second. This is critical about pursuing what is obviously to Q one of the main themes. If we were supposed to pick up different themes, the Clinton Foundation being brought to justice is a major and recurring theme in the Q post, going back to almost the first one. And I think we've got to pick this up, and we've got to stay on this theme. Q is really signaling how important it is. Okay, now I know what people want us to cover, and this was kind of the most explosive yesterday, so why don't we just go right to the stuff that Q was posting about the Nazis yesterday and kind of sort this out. And I think Q felt at the last one of these posts, I think Q almost got a little carried away. Hold on a second. Okay. Q said in 944 that we went too deep, attempted a pullback, not ready. So some of this material, the Q is kind of signaling on the Nazi issue, is going to come out, and it's going to be part of the deal. But Q doesn't want us, focusing all on the Nazis, because this is history. This is background as to how this NWO, the New World Order, we call it, how the current evolution of the globalists that developed prior to World War II. And I've done an enormous amount of work on this. I wrote about it in my book, Who Really Killed Kennedy. I wrote about it in my book about Hitler escaping, hunting Hitler. I've been researching this for years now. And so we're going to discuss it, and I think people will be, relax over in the live chat if we cover then we'll go back and we'll cover some of the in-between stuff about the Hollywood pedophilia and about Snowden. It's just that unless we get immediately to these, I think people are going to remain antsy. Is that okay with everybody here? I mean, is that, is that, I think, in line with what we want to do? And I guess,
that's what should work.
Yeah, I think it should work. I think we might as well just go ahead and do that.
I don't think when you're discussing Nazis, relax is exactly the right word.
No, but it'll be, if we have the discussion and watch the live chat very carefully, we'll be able to, someone says Snowden is on YouTube live streaming now. Is that true?
Yes, it is.
Where is he live streaming now?
If you scroll up in the Discord text chat, I think somebody put a link in there.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm very curious to watch this after a little later, after we're done discussing things, and see what he says.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Right now he's talking about how the United States spies on us through the back door, and that when we click the box, we've given consent.
I wonder where he is. Does it show where he is?
No, it's just a room, and it's just a white background, and
where's the link on that?
It's posted at 1:29 p.m. on Discord. Farmer Funk.
Okay, well, I see it right here, and I don't want to get diverted trying to follow Snowden right now, but it sure sounds like it's important, and we'll go back over to it and when we're all finished with this. And I see you've got Jason Goodman. Yeah, those are good. The Charles Ortel. Those I think I want everybody to listen to. There's a number of those posted over here, and they're very good. Some of them are, really eye-opening. Okay, now Q says over here, let me just pull this up. The Q posts, starting in number, I guess it's the one about Angela. Hold on a second, let me find it. It's 928.
You want to start there?
Yeah, let's start there.
Sure, let me go scroll it up. Just a moment.
And I'm going to have you read down to a part of it, and then I'm going to kind of stop you and start in with some commentary, because I don't want to do the whole thing all at once, break it into at least two pieces. So let's read the first few lines of it.
There we go. There's 928. Have it up for folks.
Want to read it? Go ahead.
Sure thing. All right. Angela Dorothea Kasner, daughter of a pastor, ? Name of father, history of father in all caps, both times there. Hitler Youth, member. Haircut today versus then, A, in parentheses, symbolic. U.S. intelligence post-war controlled who? The mission, quote unquote. Who is Angela Hitler, or Angela Hitler? Relationship to Adolf. How were children named in Germany during this period? first or middle, family tree, Anna, Maria, Alois. Examples, risk of quote-unquote conspiracy label, the deeper we go.
Let's stop kind of right there.
Sure, we only got one more line left anyway. Truth will shock the world. There we go.
Okay, now, the first part of this is to, and hold on just a second, I'm getting up, lined up kind of where I want to, Angela Dorothea Kasner, hold on. The Hitler family tree is complicated. It's not easy. Hold a second. Because this Aldous Hitler, Hitler's father, had 3 wives. And Hitler was born to the third, the last of the wives. Okay, and if we go into, we can follow a lot of this even in Wikipedia. It's got some pretty good postings on it. But it's, I'm just pulling up who this Angela Dorothea, okay, Angela Merkel and all the, part of the underlying is whether or not Q is going to link Merkel, the current chancellor in Germany, to Hitler in a bloodline. And of course, he has not done that yet. But that's kind of what's in yesterday I got a dozen emails about whether that was going to happen or not. Okay, now, okay, Angela Merkel was born to this Angela Dorothea Kasner on July 17th, 1954. And the Kasner name is derived from a Polish name in a Poznan family. It was the Kazmierczak. Polish is always difficult for me. I have spent some time in Poland. The language is a difficult language. And so she is part of this whole bloodline that ultimately, this Angela Dorothea Kasner traces into Hitler's bloodline as well. Okay, so the question is whether or not, ultimately, whether Merkel is Hitler's daughter and a Rothschild. Okay, this is there's some videos on this. There's a lot of material in it. And, a lot of this is not yet, I want to say as we get into this, that a lot of this is not validated. A lot of this is not, one that I'm 100% sure that I'm ready to validate as true. But I'm going to post one of the links where if everybody wants to look at this whole issue of, whether Angela Merkel is Hitler's daughter, there's a whole series of videos at the link I just posted. And I've watched them over the years. And it's interesting. Aldous Hitler is the key guy, the father of Hitler. And he has a very interesting history. And by the way, his haircut today looks a lot like, in the 1800s, his haircut today, which is pretty much shaved on the sides and hair on the top, would be considered kind of a cult haircut, even in that period of time. And so they say, who is Angela Hitler? And what is the relationship to Adolf Hitler? Well, okay, now this is a more immediate. Hold a second, I want to find it precisely. Okay. Now, as Aldous Hitler, I said, he was a customs official. And he married the first time at age 36 to a woman named Anna Glessel Horner, who was wealthy 50-year-old daughter of a customs official. She brought, Aldous Hitler into being a customs officer himself. Aldous began an affair with a 19-year-old, Fanny Metzelberger, a female servant, where he was lodging. And on November 7th, 1880, Aldous and Anna separated, and Metzelberger became the girlfriend of now 43-year-old Aldous Hitler. They couldn't marry in the Catholic Church. In 1876, 3 years after Aldous married Anna, he also hired Carla Polzi as his household servant, and she's going to become the third wife. But this Metzelberger gave birth to an illegitimate son of Aldous Hitler. The child received the mother's last name, so he was known as Alois Metzelberger, because if the child was illegitimate in Germany at this time, the child got the mother's last name. And then if the father married the woman, the child got the father's last name. Metzelberger gave birth to Angela Hitler. Okay, now Angela Hitler had a lung disorder. She was moved to a small village. Carla Polzi returned to Alois's home and began helping Alois with the two children, including Angela. Metzelberger, the first wife, died in 1884. Polzi was okay. So as Angela Hitler, we followed through. Angela Hitler, who is Hitler's half sister, because it's it's his half sister, the father by another woman, different woman. The first wife and the third wife. Angela married Leo Raubal, Raubal, in 1906, and she gave birth to a girl called Jelly, Jeli, in 1910, half-sister to Adolf Hitler. Hitler had an affair with Jelly Raubal in Munich. It was very scandalous because she was a young girl. She had ideas of being a dancer, and Hitler was totally infatuated with her, moved in with her, dominated her life. This is like his first cousin. It's the daughter of his half-sister. And Hitler one day shoots her and kills her, because she wouldn't do what Hitler said, so he shoots her and kills her. And Bronfman, who becomes Hitler's secretary, comes in and sees that Hitler is lying in a stupefied, now suicidal trance, trying to decide to kill himself, and realizes this scandal with killing Jelly is going to be murder of his first cousin. It's going to ruin Hitler's political career. So Bronfman gets Hitler out of there, takes him away, and covers it up so the police don't cover this murder. And Hitler gets away with Raubal. I'm going to pick up another thing on that and give you some more detail on that. So that's, again, the first big scandal in Hitler's life, and it's, to this day, a big scandal. Okay, Jelly Raubal, and if I pick it up, they consider her half-niece. She was the eldest child of Hitler's half-sister, Angela Raubal. In her life, she was born in Linz. She grew up with her brother. Okay, so she was in effect a prisoner of Hitler, and she managed to escape to Vienna to do singing lessons. She wanted to be an actress or dancer, and she wanted to marry this man from Linz, but Hitler forbade the relationship. And he and Robal argued on 18 September 31 when he refused to allow her to go to Vienna. And he departed for a meeting in Nuremberg, was recalled to Munich the next day, and was told that she was shot from a gunshot wound to the lung. She shot herself in Hitler's Munich apartment with Hitler's Walther pistol. She was 23. Well, and so rumors began to circulate about a sexual relationship with Hitler. The thing was all covered up. Historian Ian Kershaw, I have some of his books, maintains that whether actively sexual or not, Hitler's behavior towards Gelly has all the traits of a strong, latent, at least sexual dependence. The police ruled it as suicide. Hitler was devastated, went into a depression. Bronfman was the guy who, Hitler killed her. Hitler was a lover. From all indications.
You're comfortable with stating that as a direct fact?
I'm 100% confident of it. I mean, I've read about this, I've studied it, I've watched documentaries on it. I've seen her with, in her photo. If, my, kind of intuitive sense is just the way the two of them looked at each other, just the way the two of them acted together. Hitler had a sexual attachment to her. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that Hitler's sexual attachments were fairly bizarre. And we could discuss some of the details of them, but they're almost too gross to go into some of the details. But I've actually done a great deal of reading about it. And when you deal then with this Anna, Maria, and Alwa, and the whole family, you end up with the idea of whether or not Hitler also fathered Merkel, who would be then considered Hitler's daughter. And there's some pictures of Hitler with a young girl that does look remarkably like a young Angela Merkel. And her name Angela, and all the connections with this Angela going back into Hitler's past in the family tree. The suspicion is there. Now, I'm not 100% confident that Angela Merkel is Hitler's daughter, but it merits consideration. Now, why is this important? And, when Q says the risk of conspiracy label, the deeper we go. In other words, if you want to touch the theme that Angela Merkel is Hitler's daughter, you are going to be labeled a conspiracy theorist, and you're going to be ridiculed for pursuing the idea that there's, it's a pretty shocking idea. And I've always thought that what Germany got in the EU was fundamentally what Hitler wanted. Hitler wanted to dominate Europe economically. He wanted Germany, Deutschland über alles, Deutschland over everything. Everything in Germany. If Hitler could have had an intelligence agency that monitors every conversation of every German, every correspondence of every German, if he could have had multinational businesses that wanted international trade agreements that would, benefit the multinational corporations over workers. If you wanted to have a German health plan, remember these were National Socialists. This was socialist for everybody, because many of these workers were going to be now poor and they wouldn't be able to afford health, so you provide government health for them. And if he could have had one currency, the Deutschmark provided by the Bundesbank, used throughout Europe, Hitler might have just said, okay, that's a good deal, I'll take it. Well, that's what Merkel's got through the EU. Germany dominates the EU. And if you go back to, the original construction of the EU, Jean Monnet and the others, and I've read Jean Monnet, he pretty openly says that this is a new world order or international control idea, and Germany was going to be the dominant player in Western Europe. I mean, I don't think that Germany wanted to go to war against Churchill. I think before they invaded Russia, Hermann Hesse's mission flying into Germany was to recruit Germany to join Germany, and England and Germany would fight Russia, and the United States would then join in, and we would fight Russia, and it would be socialism v. communism. We'd all become socialists. Well, in fact, Britain and the United States are becoming socialist. Britain's already way down the road, and had Hillary been elected, they call it Hitlery, been elected, we would have been so far down that path that it would be what Hugh calls a 16-year conspiracy to take over the republic. So in a sense, I've always said that the Obama, Bush, George H.W. Bush, and Hillary dream was essentially the Nazi dream. It was essentially the dream the Nazis had of being a state-dominated multinational corporation packed with a safety net social policy for the poor, and really not caring about any of the people at all. They were just sheep. But they would be brought along in this pact, and it would benefit the elite, the bankers, the global elite like Hillary, and they'd all get to fly around in their jets and do everything that they could to be the big deal of the global elite. We'd all read about them in magazines. We'd all like to see them pictures. They'd make movies in Hollywood. We would all, long to be the global elite. The sense that was that when Hitler escaped, they were going to create the Fourth Reich. Jim Mars, by the way, someone over at Truth Seeker, the EU is the Fourth Reich. Jim Mars wrote a book on this. I was very close to Jim Mars, and I still miss Jim Mars. He just passed away tremendously. A brilliant, brilliant writer, and both on the Kennedy assassination and on the Fourth Reich. And I think basically the plan that the Dulles brothers had, funding Hitler before World War II, Alan Dulles when he was in Bern, Switzerland, all of this was an attempt, starting in 1943, knowing that Germany was going to lose this war, that the Dulles had preferred not be fought against Germany, but with Germany, against Russia, because communism was the enemy. Communism wanted no private property. They wanted socialism and no private property, and that was the big difference between the National Socialists, the Nazis, and the Communists, over which they fought. And Dulles has thought that if we could just join Hitler and Mussolini, we could beat communism. And that was the dirty little pact. And by the way, Joseph Kennedy would have been happy to go along with it. They all had investments in Germany. Prescott Bush was running a Nazi bank called Union Bank that FDR shut down just after Pearl Harbor. And when they all escaped to Germany, from Germany after World War II into Argentina and the United States, you had Alan Dulles working with the Red Cross and the Catholic Church at a rat line, and they were getting Nazis into Argentina. Starting in 1943, Bronfman with Dulles began investing Nazi money in the U.S. stock market in companies that were going to be the new world order multinational companies, U.S. Steel and all the rest. And the whole Operation Paperclip was created with the OSS and Dulles to bring scientists over to the United States to work in the United States industries and take their knowledge. And Geller, who was Gellin, who was a Gestapo, made a deal with Allen Dulles and Byrne that we took in the entire Gestapo organization and made it part of the CIA and let it operate in West Germany after the end of World War II. Now that's all documentable. A guy named Sutton has written many books on it. It's well known, well documented. A lot of this is included in both my books, Who Really Killed Kennedy and in Hunting Hitler. And I can list both of those a little bit later on, but when this whole Hitler issue is raised by Q is taking a deep dive into that history, and it will shock the world because a lot of this has been hidden. And in 929, Q goes over this again and says it's going to be relevant to coming events. And future will prove the past. In 930, POTUS's recent relevant tweet here about the EU, enough is enough, she was warned. Well, what Trump had tweeted, if we go over and find it, was over the steel issue, because Trump is taking the initiative away from these globalists, from this Nazi endeavor to, create an EU, a North American Union. Trump, 21 hours ago, said the European Union, wonderful countries who treat the U.S. very badly on trade, and complaining about the tariffs on steel and aluminum. If they drop their horrific barriers and tariffs on U.S. products go in, we will likewise drop ours. Big deficit. If not, we tax cars, etc. Fair. Well, Trump isn't going to put up with it. Trump is not interested in the New World Order. Trump, like me, is interested in the old world order, namely the Constitution and the Republic. And that's what he's fighting. That's what I'm fighting. It's what we're fighting to preserve. And if Merkel, thinks her little internationalist dream, taking in all of these Muslims, because this hard left has made a deal, between communism and Marxism and socialism and Islam, which goes back to Germany's bringing in the Mufti of Jerusalem. 1931 started courting him. 1938, the Mufti of Jerusalem was in Berlin planning with Hitler to throw all the Jews out of Israel, Palestine. That was the beginning of the Muslim Brotherhood. Obama was Muslim Brotherhood. Huma Abedin family's Muslim Brotherhood. Huma, when she did her emails from the State Department and parked them on yahoo.com, I'm confident, was charging or letting the Muslim Brotherhood have the username and password. They were reading all the emails out of the State Department. Libya was destabilized with Gaddafi killed, with Hitler and Obama a plan to let the Muslim Brotherhood that had now morphed into all these militias, ultimately to become ISIS, control the country. When Mubarak was eliminated in Egypt and Morsi came in, Hillary and Obama celebrated the Muslim Brotherhood was in control. When el-Sisi of the military took over and imprisoned and made illegal the Muslim Brotherhood, Obama and Hillary cut off the aid to Egypt. Muslim Brotherhood is all through the Middle East. Yasser Arafat was not a Palestinian. He was born in Egypt. He was Muslim Brotherhood, sent on a mission that goes back to Hitler. And David Horowitz has a very good book called The Unholy Alliance. The Goebbels came up with this idea that the Aryan race comes out of Himalaya, where they used to have, swastika as a symbol that was used by the monks that would meditate up in the Himalayas. They came into Germany this mythical race, this Wagnerian mythical race. Hitler loved Wagner. He had also an attachment to Wagner's wife after Wagner died. I don't think that was sexual, but it was very kind of Hitler doting it on her. And Iran changed its name from Persia to Iran because in Farsi, Iran means Aryan. So this whole Nazi order was designed, and you can see on the posts on 935 and 936, where Q has Nazis with the fascist salute, and on the far right is Goebbels, who is the one who propagated this whole myth of the Aryan race, head of propaganda, who begged Edward Bernays, after he wrote a book in 1933 called Propaganda, to come to Germany to teach him. Bernays was a Jew. Bernays wouldn't do it. My father hired Bernays when he was working with the Brotherhood of Railroad Trainmen, and I spent a lot of time, worked my way through college in public relations, and I was trained by Bernays. I would have dinners at his home. I knew him quite well. When I got to Harvard, he used to invite me to his parties, social parties in Cambridge. He lived in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And I spent a lot of time with Edward Bernays. He was a genius, but his ideas had this evil side of how propaganda works. And my book, when you read my book on the killing of the deep state, a lot of it comes from what Edward Bernays taught me, is how you also not only propagate propaganda, but how you defeat it. And I reveal those techniques in the book.
Dr. Corsi, could I ask you a couple of questions?
Sure.
You're going through all this stuff. It seems, it's very, very deep and complicated, and it's really hard to follow along the connections between all these different organizations and how they fit together. You talk about Merkel being related to Hitler, possibly at least, and then maybe she's playing an obstacle to the new trade deals for steel, and then somehow the Muslim Brotherhood fits in with the Nazis. Yasser Arafat and Hitler. Oh my God!
Let me try to make it a little simpler for everybody, and let's see if they're confused over. I think in the deep chat they kind of get it over there. I'm seeing more and more people get it. The fundamental, here's the fundamental idea that may help everybody to follow along on this. When World War I ended, Germany, first of all, didn't quite know why it ended, because the Germans were, they on a line, they were, still poised to take France if they could. The whole war stalemated in Belgium, in an attempt to have Germany invade France through Belgium. It was the first plan that was also used in World War II. At the end of World War I, Germany was made to pay all the debts, and the war ended in 1918, on 11/11/1918, was signed in a railroad card, the armistice.
Versailles Treaty.
Well, the Versailles Treaty followed after the armistice, and they negotiated a treaty in Versailles. Woodrow Wilson came over to Versailles. He had this peace plan. He had this globalist idea. He was going to install a League of Nations, which was the beginning of the United Nations idea. He was a complete globalist, had put in 1913 the Federal Reserve and income tax, both unconstitutional. I don't think even fully ratified. So at the end of World War I, Germany was going, the world went into the crash of the stock market at the end of the 1928. But the Depression really didn't deepen globally until the 30s, 1932, 33. The Depression was the deepest. Now, Hitler came out of World War I. He had been a corporal. He'd been he ran messages between lines for the Germans from one unit to the other. He was a runner. He was wounded. He was gassed. He lost his sight. He was in a hospital. There's lots of rumors about his injuries in World War I. And when Hitler came out, the contest in Germany had the Weimar Republic. And the Weimar Republic was an attempt to establish kind of a German chancellor again. But the chancellors they had were a series of very weak chancellors who could not pull things together. And in the streets, there began to be riots between the communists and the fascists, both on the left. Fascists were on the left, Jonah Goldberg's book, Liberal Fascism. The Nazis were National Socialists. They wanted private property, multinational corporations controlled by the government, and a social welfare system for the majority of people who weren't going to make very much money under this arrangement because labor was going to go to the lowest common denominator. And the communists who wanted the state to own all property. And everybody worked for the state. And again, they were both on the left. They wanted socialism. And I often say these ideas were discussed in Plato's Republic, and Socrates rejects them because they just don't work. They sound good and they don't work. So at any rate, 1923, Hitler tried this beer hall putsch in Munich. He and a group of his people were in the streets. They thought they were going to emulate Mussolini's March on Rome, which had made Mussolini the leftist fascist leader in Italy, and Hitler was going to copy that. Well, they were met by the police and the military. A bunch of the Nazis in the putsch were shot. The flag that they were carrying was bloodied. That became a very holy flag in the Nazi movement. Hitler was tried and he was put in Landau prison, where together with Hermann Hesse, he wrote Mein Kampf. And when he came out, he became quickly the head of the Nazi Party, National Socialists, and they were fighting it out in the streets, the brown shirts, which were the thugs of the Nazi Party, and the communists, and this anti-fascist movement that you'll see in the pictures that are posted by Q shortly. And the communists and the Nazis fought it out in the streets. And ultimately, the Nazis won. And they basically killed as many of the communists as they could. And Hitler in 1933 became chancellor. It was a Hindenburg, been the chancellor, thought that he could control Hitler by making him making him chancellor, and they could control him through the parliament. And Hitler quickly passed a series of laws that gave himself dictatorial powers, and that was the end of the Weimar Republic, and it was the end of the German parliament having any power. And Hitler took over, and in the 1930s, when he was being financed by Wall Street, Hitler was prospering. And most American intellectuals in the 30s viewed Mussolini and Hitler as the bright, positive future of Germany and Italy. They were going to put people back to work. They're going to make the trains run on time. Hitler built the Autobahn. He had a great partnership with Henry Ford. And they all hated Jews. They blamed the Jews for losing World War I and said it was a deal between the Jews and the bankers to cause World War I so they could make money on the interest for the munitions that had to be bought. A lot of these arguments began in that period of time. So the basic idea is you had Nazis as fascists on the left versus communists. The Nazis won. The Nazis hated the Jews, and they were happy to reach out to the Muslim Brotherhood, who also hated Jews, because this would give them a foothold in the Middle East with access to oil. The one thing Germany didn't have, they had a lot of coal, but didn't have oil. And Germany was the ones who, group of scientists, Fischer and Tropsch, figured out the formulas for oil to be synthesized and made synthetically. I wrote a book on that called The Great Oil Conspiracy. Oil does not have anything to do with dinosaurs. No dinosaur ever made a barrel of oil. If you want to understand how oil is made, read the Fischer-Tropsch equations. Our scientists today have been doing experiments based on the Fischer-Tropsch experiments and have been synthesizing oil, making it artificially. You can make oil out of almost anything. Chicken parts, corn, coal. Okay, now all through all of this, the Catholic Church gets involved because the Pope is in Rome and the Vatican City with its own state. And the Jesuits at this time, very strong order. I see Sunshine Wyandotte bringing up the Jesuits, who also always had this kind of Napoleonic Jesuit world order. I was trained by the Jesuits in high school, St. Ignatius High School. And Jesuits I was trained for were a lot more interested in playing golf than they were in creating a new Napoleon third world. But in this period of time, the Jesuits were considered a secret society within the Catholic Church. Current Pope is a Jesuit, by the way, first Jesuit Pope. The Antifa are not the brown shirts. The German thugs were the brown shirts. The Antifa were the black shirts in Germany, in the Weimar Republic. Brown shirts were Hitler. That was Rahm, R-A-H-M, a homosexual who ran the SS. The SA, which was the brown shirts. To drive around in trucks and beat everybody up, especially communists. Communists were atheists. The Nazis, Kathy Go 233 is right. The Nazis were religious movement, but their religion was more of this Nordic religion of the, that you see in Wagner, the Nordic gods and the mythology of the Nordic past, the Aryan race. That's why Hitler loved Wagner. All these, think of the music like the Ride of the Valkyries and all these themes that were so Germanic and, the Norse gods. All of that was the religion. Somebody's also saying Elmo, call 9/11 Luciferian pedophilia cults. The Nazis were much more interested in worshiping this mythological gods, and they were largely homosexual or bisexual. And the SS was dominated by homosexuals. Rahm, R-A-H-M, who ran the SA, was homosexual. Hitler and what was called the Night of the Long Knives killed Rahm and all the leaders of the SA and ended basically the SA and incorporated them into the SS under Goebbels. The SS are the skull and crossbone hats. They ran the concentration camps. So the Nazis on the left won. The Nazis hate Jews. The Muslims hate Jews. The Nazis wanted the oil. The Mufti said, well, you can have the oil. Invading Russia was in part about the oil. It was in part of getting the oil in the southern part of Russia. That's a long story too, but when we were financing Hitler on Wall Street, what the Dulles brothers, what Prescott Bush got involved with these guys because he was from Connecticut. They would ride the train to New York together. And you'd had the Harriman brothers, you had the Dulleses. These were all, Connecticut Yankee families. And they adopted Prescott. And he went along because he saw this as a way to the wealth he would get. And he played along with them on Wall Street. The Dulleses were both bankers and lawyers. And they brought in law firms like Cromwell, Sullivan, and the like. And so we would get U.S. Steel, and it would be a counterpart to the Germans' munitions industry, that was making all Germany's munitions, tanks, etc. Yes, the what is the name of that Krupp? It begins with a K.
K-R-U-P-P. Krupp Arms.
Krupp Arms and U.S. Steel were put together as the counterparts of each other, and they had interlocking directorates. And then they had mutual shareholdings. This was the beginning of multinational corporations. And they were going to control the world. Corporations were going to set the rules. Goldman Sachs was going to set the rules. So it was all going to be ruled to the benefit of multinational corporations. Okay, and this is all of what the Nazis' dream was about. It's why they were so interested in Islam, and they put Islam together with their leftist ideology and hating Jews. And initially Hitler offered the Jews to leave, but in the early 30s, the Jews could not believe. I mean, many of the Jews had fought for Germany in World War I. They were heavily decorated. They had been in Germany for centuries and were into the fabric of Germany. They were bankers. They were educators. You had Einstein, and you had all this high German culture that produced Beethoven, that produced poets, that produced art, that produced the highest culture. Hitler was from Austria. They didn't consider them to be part of. He wasn't good enough to be a real German. He was Austria, and Austria and Vienna, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, used to compete with Germany. And so Hitler was viewed as a second-class citizen. He was like Obama. They said Hitler had to change some of the laws so that as an Austrian-born, he could become Chancellor of Germany. Very much like the controversy over Obama and his birth certificate and whether he's a Kenyan, which, by the way, Q is saying we're going to go back into. All of this, somebody, Amariti says, I've never been a security for U.S. Army 82nd Airborne instructor, School of the Americans in the 80s. He's been woken up since 1986. Sorry, I can't be part of the club. I'm not sure what that means entirely, but 82nd Airborne was a very important division, World War II. The Vatican symbology is similar to the Islamic mosque symbology, but Rome has been around longer than Islam. Yes, and Muhammad, when he wrote the Quran, talks both about Jesus and Moses, and once it was in part against the Jews because the Jews rejected Muhammad, didn't accept him, and he turned on them. Okay, so this is, I think, part of the history you've got to understand, and the bloodlines of Hitler that have been questioned or whether he, through these servant girls, was, had Rothschild blood, whether he had Jewish blood. He had these ancestral relationships with his first niece, the daughter of his half-sister. He hated his father, adored his mother, and the mother who raised him, was not the mother who gave him birth, and was deeply depressed when his natural mother died, that he never quite got over. Now, all this goes back into what I was pointing out yesterday, the Novo Ordo Secularum, which is you get this goes now through the Latin roots of this whole idea of there being a new, the pyramid and the eye at the top, the dollar at the bottom says Novus Order Secularum, which is new order of the ages. And that gives birth to the Masons and to the Knights Templar and all the rest of it. But the point I'm trying to make is that when Q is referring to all of this, and Q is suggesting, I think appropriately, that they took a deep dive in all this stuff, and we're not quite ready to really sort it all out because it's going to raise a lot of questions. And I don't think Q is anti-Jewish, quite the contrary. Israel is playing a major, major relationship with Donald Trump, and it's world historic. And Trump, by declaring Jerusalem and moving our embassy, is going to be a world historical figure in Judaism, comparable to Harry Truman, 48, going for the division of Palestine and the United Nations and the creation of the State of Israel, comparable to Cyrus the Great, who returned the Jews out of captivity in Babylonia, gave them the wherewithal to build the Second Temple. Not necessarily perfect human beings, but very world historically important. Now, all this kind of ties together because Q is talking about Goldman Sachs. Well, Goldman Sachs is the multinational corporate banking arm, and Cohn comes from Goldman Sachs. Hillary gave all these speeches. Hillary and Obama worshipped at the altar of Goldman Sachs, just like they worshipped at the altar of World Trade Organizations and international trade, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the Trans-American Partnership. I've been fighting against these my entire career, trying to expose them.
So I guess I've been mistaken on I thought that the communists were part of the cabal. I mean, is that not the case? I mean, if they're this, the anti-fascist stuff, that's communism, right?
Yeah, by the time you get to the Democratic Party attacks fascists, which they think are on the right. In the history, the anti-fascist Action was a communist paramilitary arm to fight the brown shirts. Okay, now, in the confusion of ending World War II, when the McCarthyism started in the 50s, the left defined the right as fascists. And they tried to maintain this authoritarian personality of Hitler, the Gestapo, concentration camps, was on the right, that this was the state controlled on the right. It wasn't. The fascists were on the left. The right has always, through this period of time, been more embracing, John Stuart Mills, Locke, Hume, all of this was part of the left's, and part of the right's embracing of the principles that led to our Constitution, which, by the way, happened to be called classic liberalism. Today's right comes out of classic liberalism.
Today's words from us, we can't even talk about this stuff. It doesn't make sense.
And taking words is part of what they do. This is part of the whole intention of the left in order to make everybody unable to talk about this stuff without using their terms. Net neutrality. It isn't net neutrality. It's a license for the Googles of the world to censor. So when we come out to the anti-fascist Action, which is the paramilitary wing of the Democratic Party of America, it was also the paramilitary wing of the Communist Party of Germany, fighting against the brown shirts. Okay? And Hitler was a puppet of the controlling families of this New World Order. The Rothschilds, the international bankers, the Rockefellers, the Fords. Henry Ford and Hitler became big buddies. And Hitler, who created the Volkswagen, got the idea from Henry Ford's Model T. And the idea of the Autobahn came from Henry Ford's idea of superhighways, which is today our interstate highway system. That was Henry Ford's idea, and he promoted it. Eisenhower did it. Hitler created the Autobahn, on which he put Volkswagens that were Model Ts. And in his automobile manufacturers, Ford distributed Hitler's anti-Jew literature, because Hitler and Ford hated Jews about the same.
So we are talking about the left, but we're not talking about the left the way that we conventionally think about it, because it's not that communist sort of left, like atheist sort of people. They are religious, just that's a weird Himalayan Egyptian mix of whatever
they're happy on the left to embrace Lucifer. They want a god. They're not atheists. The true communists are atheists. We don't have true communists. We have National Socialists.
Well, some of our citizens are on the left, maybe not the people at the top, but a lot of people really embrace communism, and they're atheists, just like straight up Marxists.
But see, you don't have Hillary Clinton saying there shouldn't be, private property. You've got to understand what Stalin did was he followed through Marx's principles of no private property. He took the farms away from everybody, and he put them on collective farms. They were going to work on collectives, in which maybe 50 million Russians died, because the collective farms didn't produce enough food to feed anybody. It didn't work.
Because they killed all the people who knew how to farm.
And took the land away from them.
But like Marxism is still popular in academia today.
Today's left acts like National Socialists and talks like communists.
That's a good way to summarize it.
Okay, they act like National Socialists, and they espouse the social justice that would have been comfortable to communists. And they use a lot of the communist logic. But in reality, they're National Socialists. The EU is a National Socialist idea. The North American Union is a National Socialist idea. And when Q puts out these three pictures of the anti-fascist action in Germany, these were all communist rallies opposing the Nazis. These were communist rallies. If you enlarge some of these pictures, you can read the German. Das Anweichen das Antifaschen. I think that's, not sure if that word is Arbeiten, workers, but these are all German signs. This is a communist, the top one is a communist rally. It looks like it looks like Berlin to me in the 30s.
So today's Antifa, or the American anti-fascists, they're not even they're not the same organization anymore, if that's the case, because
no, they just use the flag and the symbol and the anti-fa because they want to say they're anti-right, which they want to make into, conservative business people. They want to make it into Wall Street. I mean, as was Phyllis Schlafly always used to rail against this, that a lot of the Republicans were were really National Socialists because they promoted multinational corporations, and government supporting multinational corporations were happy to vote for social welfare programs. The Rockefellers wanted to feel like they were philanthropic.
But it's almost like today's Antifa is exact opposite of the original Antifa.
Yes, it is. Because they're not opposed to National Socialism. It's like the communists and the National Socialists have blended together into the Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm.
And it has both of these aspects to it. But the Republican Party also shares a lot of the National Socialism. Combined
then you can start talking about the neocons and their Trotskyites.
Precisely, and how read Phyllis Schlafly's book, A Choice Not an Echo, in which she lays this out about as well as any. The two books you got to read are Phyllis Schlafly's A Choice Not an Echo, and Jonah Goldberg's book, which is the liberal fascism. That, by the way, was edited by Adam Bellow, who is Saul Bellow's son.
May I add Road to Serfdom onto that list also?
That's also a very good book. That's by, what's his name of the Austrian school? Whose name I'm dropping right at the second, but it's Hayek. Yeah, Hayek. Yeah, that's also a critical book to read. Because, see, Hayek is very much not on the right. He is a classic liberal in the sense of our founding fathers were classic liberals. They were Hobbes, Hume, Locke. These are the guys they read. You know, all the John Stuart Mills, his father, John Mills, Edmund Burke. I did a lot of my graduate school work on all of this at Harvard. This is one of the things I really focused on at Harvard. Because when I was a kid, it confused me too. And I could always do the mathematical part of political science and all of the rest of it. So I decided I was really going to focus in on this ideology. And I read all this in graduate school and wrote my made thesis on a First Amendment topic, prior restraint, prior punishment, and political dissent, which was really on the Pentagon Papers cases. And so I got deeply into this when I was in my 20s. And so the Catholic Church, I want to talk about the Catholic Church for a minute. The Catholic Church, in World War II, there were many of the priests and cardinals, the hierarchy of the church, were Nazis. They were fascists. They were leftists, but they liked Mussolini. You can see them here with the Nazi salute. Pope Pius XII had a very uneasy relationship with Nazis. He had to deal with them because Hitler and Mussolini made a pact. The Nazis were all over the place, and he wanted to maintain the papacy. But he, I believe, also did not like the Holocaust and was trying to prevent the Holocaust. And not all the church was, a lot of the church, Catholic Church, was anti-Jew. At this point, blaming the Jews for killing Jesus. And the racism, the sexism and racism and the hatred of Jews dominated Europe at this period of time. The Jews who got out in the 30s were lucky. And the ones who couldn't see it coming waited too long. For a while, Hitler was ready to let them all go, and then he shut the door. And shutting the door in Palestine was Winston Churchill, who was also got some not so nice skeletons in his closet. But the point is, the rat line after the war involved the Catholic Church in a plan to get the Nazis out of Europe. Thousands of Nazis left Europe and came to the United States or to Argentina, and many of them through the CIA. Alan Dulles' program or the OSS, this paperclip, which brought in the scientists. So the Catholic Church went through a very, very difficult period of time here, and this was the beginning, I think, of what I consider to be the third secret of Fatima, which is the church corruption from within, as they became more and more Luciferian and more pedophilia. Martin Malachi's books are really good on this. And they really explain this corruption in the church. And the current pope is either a socialist or a communist, loved Obama, has done nothing to solve the pedophile problem within the church, and has really, I think, further discredited the church and brought it down. But these are, and I'm a Catholic, and I'm greatly troubled by the pedophile problem in the church. But it, again, is part of the corruption that we're also going to be dealing with. The Nazis were also, they were homosexual and pedophilia, both. And it was part of their culture, part of the SS culture. They had women in camps, and they would go and breed the women, but they were basically, there was a homosexual culture that pervaded much of Nazi Germany,
including Hitler, right?
Well, Hitler's sexuality, I think, was so confusing that I'm not sure it fits any conventional definitions. And as Hitler got into the, being the Führer, he started getting addicted to all these drugs that they were injecting him with. And Hitler, a lot of the Nazis also ran on these amphetamines that they were producing. The Nazis were very much into the amphetamines. There's been a book written about that recently. I'll have to try to see if I can find it. I have a copy of it here. It was a very big book in Europe. The Nazis were all high on amphetamines all the time, keeping them awake.
I recall a couple of conversations I had with World War II veterans that were over in the European theater, and they said they would come after they would liberate a Nazi camp. They would come in and they'd find these kind of mobile laboratories for creating amphetamines on the during their campaigns.
Well, they did a lot of that, and I'll pull the book here in a minute because there was one that in particular was very popular. People in the live chat are following what we're doing. Some of them are they're boring us all. They don't like the history. Well, it's been brought up by Q, and so
I think this is some really interesting stuff.
It is, and it is, and I think you have to understand this stuff to understand what we're dealing with today. Otherwise, you've just got the surface of it. What we're dealing with today goes back through World War I and World War II, and it does involve the Jews and the oil and all of this. I mean, and others over here are really understanding it and loving the history. Some are bored, some are loving it, and yes, this is being recorded. We'll put it up on the it'll be on my YouTube page and the Gap page later today. I'll have this all up there so everybody can listen to it again. And
this is also the kind of stuff we're going to go into depth on Coffee and Freedom. We'll be covering a lot of this stuff, I'm sure.
And look, this is the reason we're discussing this is not I want to, go through the history, and the reason we're discussing it is because Q spent all of these posts yesterday on the history, including this picture of the priests and Goebbels and the Nazi salute, including Goldman Sachs, and including, all of the EU and its ties. Q brought up Angela Dorothea Kasner, which is, suggesting Merkel. And Q brought up all of this stuff about, all the U.S. intelligence post-war controlled who? Well, we controlled the Nazi Gestapo. We incorporated into the CIA. Who is Angela Hitler? All these things were Q bringing up yesterday. And it's the only reason we're discussing it, not because we want to have the history lesson, but if Q considers it important I think we better devote time to looking at it and studying it and understanding it, because Q's has this context and is trying to save Donald Trump. And, a lot of this is the backdrop of my book, The Killing of the Deep State. But I try to cover it in a few sentences. I try to cover the key points of it. Today we're going a little bit deeper. And it's why Q comes out and says up here that, we went too deep. This stuff, you go real deep. I mean, it's fascinating. It's seductive. It's important. It sets the backdrop. You really can't understand, why the Democratic Party, why is Soros funding Antifa? And then you realize it comes out of the 30s, it was the paramilitary wing of the Communist Party of Germany. And that the whole design that is used by Antifa is the same design, fundamentally, that was used by the communists. And that's not accidental.
So you're fighting that link between the Nazis had their mystical side, starting with the Nordic stuff. They were trying to get their own Volk religion or whatever. They wanted to reclaim that, but then they also took an interest in the Aryan mythology there.
Yes.
And so they ended up in the Himalayas and started studying.
They blended the two.
And stuff. Yes.
Yeah. They blended the two. I mean, the SS are two runes. There's not an S and an S. It's two runes. When the runes were this Nordic mystical handwriting. It's like two thunderbolts. It's not SS.
So when the Catholic Church gets involved in that, is it, I'm trying to figure out which is the influence. Is it, so the Nazi Party in Germany starts in this whole mystical sort of direction, and then the Jesuits and the Catholic Church are then being corrupted by the Nazis? Is
Parts of it.
Yeah, parts of the Catholic Church is appropriate because it wasn't the whole Catholic Church, and I maintain that Pius XI really did everything he could to try to save the Jews. Part of the Catholic Church was as anti-Jew as the Nazis because Christ was killed by the Jews. Remember, the Bible, Pontius Pilate doesn't really want to crucify Jesus. He doesn't think he did anything wrong. But he brings him out to the crowd. He says, I'll pardon one of these guys. Here's Barabbas. He's a thief, common thief, or Jesus. And the crowd says, give us Barabbas. And so then from that point on, the Jews say, a faction of Christianity said that the Jews killed Christ. And remember, I was raised up in the church in the 50s, so I, as a kid, would hear all this stuff. My father, who was very political from the time I was born, fought in World War II and lived through this. I get a copy of his yearbook, and they called him the fascist. Well, because he liked Mussolini. They all liked Mussolini. They still like Mussolini in Italy. Despite the fact of the way they brutally killed him, he's still a figure of bringing Italy into the modern era, out of the depression. Italy didn't unify until the 1870s under Garibaldi. It was principalities. Naples was its own principality, going back to when Machiavelli was writing about the principalities fighting each other in Italy. That didn't change until the 1870s. Garibaldi and the black shirts that unified Italy. And the next big national hero, and after all of that, there was two kings. The Victoria Emmanuel was, they still have buried in the Pantheon. And then Mussolini. Well, Mussolini would have been buried in the Pantheon. Second World War kind of tarnished his reputation a little bit. But in Italy, he's still very much beloved. And Italy is still divided between the communists and the socialists and the right. And, I would go to dinners with my family in Rome and every political party. You couldn't have a political conversation. You know, and this was the background the Q is pointing to. You know, this is the background the Q is seeing in what Trump is fighting, because Trump wants to get beyond this New World Order stuff. He wants to return to the classic liberalism of our founding fathers. You know, Hobbes, Locke. Go read Hobbes and Locke and Hume, John Stuart Mills. These are the ones that resonate, that our founding fathers were reading, that resonated with Thomas Paine, Common Sense, that resonated with Madison and the others in the Federalist Papers. And that stems back to Aristotle. Aristotle studied constitutions. Aristotle was a populist, a national populist, very much like Trump. That's how he came out.
But a lot of those guys that you're talking about are, I mean, those are standard fare for you get in your education in the university. So why is it that, I mean, I guess where are these other students being trained? I mean, for when they're getting told about their histories as Nazis, where do they receive that education?
Well, today, there's all that's going on in the college indoctrination. They're not teaching any of the philosophy or any of these that we're talking about. They're just teaching, you know, social justice, and you can take courses on women's rights and black rights and Hispanic rights. This is okay. So people are saying, you know, people are saying Bill Ayers over here. Yeah, well, Bill Ayers was classic socialist, and so was Saul Alinsky, and they blended in parts of communism when it fit their need. But what is taught in the schools today is none of this intellectual or philosophic history. You know, and I mean, all of this is part of the dark, you know, in Europe, the questions about, you know, did Hitler have Jewish blood in him? Is he another part of the family that the name got dropped? Hitler could have just as easily been Schicklgruber. That was the big joke when I was a kid. All the guys who fought in World War II used to call him Schicklgruber. Well, that was another part of the family that the name got dropped out. And, you know, these are factions, and but you've got to really get into the history and study it. And we're going to have to do some of that to follow all of what Obama was about. Obama was happy to go along with the New World Order crowd with Soros. Explaining Soros is another whole long lesson, but Soros does not like the United States. He doesn't like the democracy. He doesn't want organized government. He wants more of an anarchy. And yeah, someday I might write some of this history. I don't know. But at any rate, what you got to come out of this where first of all, I think one of the concerns is that if we're going to understand Trump is not anti-Semitic. Trump sees value in the Jews, the Jewish state of Israel, and I think he sees it through the passages in the Bible which say that who helps Israel, God will help, and that when the Jews reestablished the state of Israel, that they weren't going to lose it again. And Trump remember, he's Norman Vincent Peale. That's who he was educated by in his spiritual training in New York when he was a young man. Went to Norman Vincent Peale's church. He's not anti-Semitic. And he is not anti-Catholic. I'm not anti-Catholic. When I criticize the Catholic Church, it's out of, you know, wanting to have the Catholic Church be its better part. there's a lot of people in here who are going off on some different theories, but I want to stick to the main themes here. Okay, so that's the deep dive that Q took us into yesterday, and I think that may be enough on for now, but it's going to be important to read a few of those books if you really want to understand it. And if you're going to read one, I'd read Liberal Fascism, as I think he covers most of these bases. It's not an easy book to read, but it's a good one, and a much shorter choice, not an echo. I've got to take this call for a minute. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Andrew, I'm on the internet. What can I do for you? It's perfect. Couldn't be better.
I think we should talk and drown him out so we don't listen to his personal phone call, everyone.
We'll talk about
you. Everybody there?
Okay, thank you.
I'm here.
All right. Just didn't want anyone to hear his personal phone call.
Okay, I want to cover a couple more things. How long we've been at this. Time just kind of flies here. A couple more points that were made yesterday that I think are worth making sure everybody picked up. This whole Snowden thing, I think, is basically, we've covered it extensively. I think Snowden is probably combination white hat and black hat. And I think that the military intelligence is giving him his choice right now, and I think he's choosing to be a white hat. But we'll find out.
Should we just say something along the lines of he's a well-intentioned genius or something like that? He's got the right intentions, but he's been deceived because he doesn't understand who the good guys and bad guys really are.
I think he went with the CIA because he thought they were the good guys. And I think he got red-pilled in realizing how much data the CIA and the NSA are illegally creating. I don't think everything he did in his career is admirable. And I'm sure there's a big debate within the government as to whether to arrest him or not. But he, obviously, from what Q has posted, they know where he is. And if our intelligence agencies wanted him, we'd have him. Another thing we're going to have to focus on, I think we may pick this up in the news segment to discuss all. Q's gone back to the birth certificate issues. He's gone back to the Tillerson in Kenya, this theme of, before all this is over, Obama is going to be wishing he were a citizen of Kenya. And the Kenya stuff is going to be, I think, important. We probably ought to do a deep dive in Kenya and Obama and Odinga and that whole thing. But that's going to be like doing the Nazis. And everybody wanted to talk. All the live chat was really wanting to talk about the Nazis today more than about the birth certificate.
I think our next show for Coffee and Freedom, we're planning on diving into Kenya and Obama. So you'll see that very soon, folks.
I can't wait on that one.
And the other thing I think that's clear in a lot of this is that Trump was having meetings with Kim Jong-un, I think, before when he was in China. And I think some of the pictures of the Air Force One flying over the Yalu River dividing North and South Korea. And I think Israel has played a role in this that will come out later to assist in putting this together. And that's, again, another long story. But, I think all these themes and the pedophilia themes in Hollywood, that Standard Hotel in Adam Schiff's district, all the pedophilia and the Pizzagate stuff, all this is mixed into this series of emails, so that another theme that we're going to pick up at the end of this is the extent to which the pedophilia is a major theme in the elite and the satanic nature of the pedophilia with Hollywood and the like. By the way, over on the 8chan, I want to pick up another, I want to do two things before we quit. On 8chan, there was also a very good post on the Hollywood adoptions. Where did I see that? It's over here. Modern day, no, it was all the adoptions in Hollywood, which there are a lot of, and all the child pornography that's involved with a lot of the actors who rose up through that system. Wait a second. There was one very good post that listed it all. And I think 412 Anon, if 412 Anon is listening, I think Q did a shout out to 412 Anon for the databases being put together within our group, within this group. And I'm going to want to work more with 412 Anon to get those things brought forward more prominently.
Thank you, Dr. Corsi. Also, credit to Resignation Anon. He's the one that actually collected all the data. I put a windshield so you could kind of dig into it deeper, but he did all the hard work to bring that data together. So he deserves just as much credit as I do.
Well, the two of you need to keep working, and we need to find a place to post these dashboards so the people can, and a dashboard needs to be done on these adoptions. I just don't see what I saw before over here. Maybe I'm on the wrong one. Let me go back to the 8chan and see if I can find it quickly. But it was very, very good on the adoptions. Hold on. Don't see it really quite right off. Let me pull up the catalog again. It may have been in a prior one. I'm going to look at one prior one and see if it's there. The 8chan, by the way, spent a great deal of time talking about all of these subjects we today as well. The Hitler stuff and Merkel, Hitler's secret backers. There's some pretty good stuff in the 8chan research over there that we ought to pick up on. Here we go. It's post number 616-561. Who's adopted? 616-561. And that is was posted. It's here. The a website there too. If you look at it, it's the AmericanAdoptions.com, adoption-celebrity_adoption. So many stars adopted children. Many famous people were adopted. Among the famous people who were adopted were Bill Clinton, Robert Byrd, Mother Teresa, Nancy Reagan, Michael Reagan, Eleanor Roosevelt, Nelson Mandela, Tom Monahan, the founder of Domino's Pizza, Gerald Ford, Marilyn Monroe, Jesse Jackson, Steve Jobs, Eric Clapton, Malcolm X, Larry Ellison, founder of, and then adopted children. There's a long list of those. That might make another interesting database. I'm not sure, but we might have to take a look at it. But I want to see if we can't get 412 Anon and these dashboards put up so that they can be used and updated. I think they're going to be very valuable.
Yeah, they're available. There's a Tableau public site that I'm using right now. I'm going to work with Farmer and a few others to get them up on WeGo One also. So
get them to me. I'm going to start. I've started working with the Steemit, and I want to put them up on Steemit. That community, I think, would like them too. That'll be a good repository for some of this deeper material. And okay, I think that would be a good place to have it. And I want to go back to again. I want to end with. I'm going to have the my address for emails is going to be jrlc@gmail.com. JRLC, my initials, Jerome Robert Louis Corsi, JRLC at yahoo.com. And I want to stress, please continue to go back at if we can make Killing the Deep State #1 on Amazon, we'll have really gotten ourselves a very large platform to advance all of this. And we discussed that earlier, and I've got the links in here. I want it to be able to compete with Isaac Isikoff's book, which is going to attempt to portray Trump as a Russian stooge. Isikoff and David Korn, the Russian roulette. They're going to push that book at the same time. My book is going to be out, Killing the Deep State, and I want Killing the Deep State, which is telling the true story of what's going on to defeat this Russian collusion narrative, which the left just won't let go of. It's like propaganda. They won't let go of it. So all of that we discussed earlier, I'm not going to repeat it in detail before, but I think it's very important.
I did notice that it switched the category that it was #1 in.
It did.
It's now executive something. Look it up.
Okay. And I'm going to do a live chat on YouTube at 4 o'clock. I'm going to push it back to an hour. At 4 o'clock, I'm going to do it. Give myself a little bit of a break. Then I'll do the live chat on YouTube. Okay, everything. It's been a good session, and thank you for bearing through it all. I think it was a good idea to review those posts we got yesterday. They certainly did take us in some new directions, and it was a deep dive, and even Q acknowledged it was a deeper dive than maybe Q was comfortable with taking at that point, but it was certainly a good warm-up. Thank you all. Everybody has a great Sunday. God bless, and look forward to being with you soon again.
Dr. Corsi, Thumper here. I just want to let you know I'm looking forward to hearing from you and getting our contact info solidified.
As soon as I sign off, I'm going to be sending you a message, probably an email, maybe an instant message.
Excellent. I'll look for it.
Okay, great. Thank you. God bless you. Yes. Bye-bye.